Hi and welcome to Sketching the World with me, Kat. Today I'm talking about what's your travel sketching style. What's your travel sketching style? When I talk about travel sketching style, I'm not talking about art style, I'm not talking about how you draw or how you paint, but more how you actually sketch when you're traveling, how you want your travel sketchbook to look. So the sketchbook as a whole, not the actual sketches that you make. I think it's really important to think about this before you even start traveling, because it's really going to inform the way that you choose and pack your materials. The kind of sketchbook that you use, the kind of materials you use, the kind of bits and pieces that you need to take with you. If you're sketching at home or just in your local area going out for a couple of hours, yeah, you can take everything. You can do the whole kitchen sink method. But if you're packing to travel, especially if you're flying, you do have restrictions on the materials you can take with you. So it's really good to sort of think about what you want your end result to be so that you can have the materials you need. I mean, if you're making a cake, you want to know what the cake's going to be at the end, so you know what ingredients to use. Same with sketching. So let's talk about a few different travel sketchbook styles. The first one, this is one that's not really something I do. I've seen other people do it and it looks fantastic, and that is more travel journaling. So it's a style that combines like sketching, journaling, like written journaling, also scrapbooking a little bit, adding in materials. And I think this is a really great travel sketchbook idea for people who really like doing like gorgeous page layouts and having everything. If you want to create something that's a memory of your trip that you can look back on, rather than just having a photo album full of photos, or nowadays you don't even have a photo album, you just have a like camera reel on your phone. So instead of just having that, you want to have a physical thing that holds all your memories. And so you might be collecting tickets and putting those in. You might be collecting other stuff that I can't think of. But yeah, like tickets, you go to a museum, you have your ticket. You go to a cafe, you have like maybe a nice little business card or something in the cafe alongside your sketch of your lunch you had, and then a little bit of writing down one side about today I ordered a taco, pulled pork taco, and it was super delicious, or whatever you want to say about your meal. And I think with something the writing is with the sketching can be good for adding in all those sensory details that you probably don't get with just a sketch. So, you know, how the place smelled, how it sounded, what small things were going on around you. It can be really good to have like just those small little incidents that happen when you're traveling that you can forget so easily. When I first started traveling, I used to keep a travel diary, just a written travel diary. And I stopped doing that, but it's really amazing when you go back and read something like that, how much you've forgotten, and you can, yeah, just really re-immerse yourself into the experience. So that is one style, and I kind of feel that if you're doing that kind of thing, you obviously need a sketchbook with the thick pages that can hold having collage of things glued in. You don't want thin paper that's going to, you know, not handle the weight of having other materials glued on top. You want something that can handle sketching, that can handle writing, and I think it'd be really good to have a sketchbook that has a pocket. You know, those pockets that you get in the back of sketchbooks, or even just getting a nice little pocket and sticking it in so that you can collect stuff and have it all there together until you've got time to lay out your pages. Be good to take some, like a glue stick, some washi tape, all that kind of thing, so that you can create your journal while you're traveling. I mean, I said I haven't done this, but I do know that if I did do this, I would need to do it in the moment, because if I just put everything into a pocket and thought I'd put it all together when I got home, I wouldn't do it. I know some people would, and you know, it might be a nice thing like a couple of months after you get home from your holiday to sit down and actually put your journal together, and it's great memories, sort of a great, oh, I'm back from holiday, but the holiday is still going on a little bit kind of experience. Yeah, the next type of sketching is just your basic urban sketching, sketching on location. This is the kind of thing I do. It's really in my wheelhouse. Yeah, I said in my wheelhouse, even though I'm not in a business meeting. This type of style is more for if you just, yeah, want to do sketching on location while you're traveling. You want to go to some cool places, do some sketching. I think it's a really good way to travel because nowadays seems to be a lot of travel style where people just rush around, go to the main site, take a few photos, rush off to the next one. Whereas when you're sketching on location in these places, you're spending a lot more time actually immersed in the experience. You're well, it takes a while to do a sketch, and while you're doing it, you're taking in all the smells, the sounds, the sights, definitely the sights. And I mean, I'm sure, as you know, once you start sketching something, you see a lot more than what you would just taking a photo. You start to notice all those little details, and so you sort of have more of a connection to the place. That can be a great thing to have. Travel sketchbook, like this is my trip to Italy book, and then you've got all your sketches you did while you were in Italy or wherever you go to. And yeah, very immersive, definitely. So if that's the kind of thing you like doing, then the urban sketching travel sketchbook style is for you. So with this style of sketching, I'll actually break it down into two different kinds of sketching within this. If you're primarily a watercolor sketcher, then you're going to have different needs to someone who's primarily using dry media. I mean, I'm saying watercolor and dry media. There are other media. Yeah, it's not just dry media or watercolor. Like there are other medias you can use, like gouache, ink, that kind of thing. But I never travel with ink. I have this horror that if I put ink in my luggage, it's going to explode and I'm going to end up with clothes just covered in ink. If you're using dry media, any kind of sketchbook's good that has fairly fine paper, drawing like cartridge paper. I like to use the Moleskine square sketchbooks. I've used those for a few trips. They're really good for a whole range of media. And I like the square format because I can do a longer picture over the 2 pages if I want to, or I can just keep it square. Looks nice on the Instagram grid. And yeah, it really does handle all kinds of media well. But yeah, any kind of cheaper sketchbook with that kind of drawing paper, you know your sketchbook, and just take what you use at home, maybe start a new one for your trip. With watercolor, it gets a bit more complicated just because, well, if you're doing a line and wash, just a very light wash, then it's okay. But once you start getting into a bit more watercolor, you really need a special watercolor sketchbook to make your pictures look their best. But you don't want to get into, if I'm using watercolor at home, I use cotton paper and the really high quality watercolor paper. But if you're traveling, you have the issue with drying time. You don't want to be on location doing a sketch. You put down your first wash, wait 10 minutes for that to dry, put another wash, wait 10 minutes for that to dry. Like maybe if you've got multiple sketchbooks, but then do you want to carry multiple sketchbooks with you? So yeah, I'd go for something like maybe Kathryn or Harmula, some of those that make the higher quality pulp paper. You don't want something that's going to make your watercolors look shit, that's going to not work very well for you. So yeah, it's a compromise. compromise. Yeah, one suggestion if you want to use different media like that, like watercolour and dry media, is to figure out what you're using primarily. Like if it's dry media, take a dry media sketchbook, then take some watercolour paper with you, just some single sheets, loose sheets, and use that for the watercolour. Or you could go the opposite and take a watercolour pad. We'll just take maybe a watercolour pad and a dry media. Or even take a watercolour pad but get the hot press. Hot press is the word I was looking for there. They're quite smooth watercolour paper, so it's good for drawing on with other media as well. And that way you've got something that's across the board. I don't like using dry media on watercolour paper because I feel like watercolour paper is too expensive to use with dry media. I'm a bit of a cheapskate like that. It's kind of like, I'm not using my good watercolour paper for using coloured pencils. But if you're okay with that, then it's a good way to do it. So yeah, one thing you could do is find your own sketchbook for your travels and put in some watercolour paper, some drawing paper, tone paper, black paper even. Just getting all those different textured papers and binding them into a nice little travel sketchbook. I think one of the reasons I don't do this is that I always use my sketchbooks in a linear style. Like I start at the front, work to the back. And the thought of doing like a sketch in the front, then turning to the middle to use a different paper, then to the back or whatever, going all over the place, it just does my head in. But I mean, some people do that. Some people really enjoy doing that, and other people like me don't. So if you're okay with it, I think it's a really good idea to actually make your own travel sketchbook and yeah, just get things happening. And moving on from that, this is something that I've been thinking about doing lately, is just having a special interest travel sketchbook, something that's very specific. Yeah, I guess you could say that a travel sketchbook already is just exploring one particular interest. You've got like that focused subject within that sketchbook. But you can even borrow down further and look at the things that interest you. One of the things could be doing a nature sketchbook and looking at different plants that are native to the location that you're in, going to some gardens, sketching plants, that kind of thing. That could make a really, really gorgeous sketchbook. Or even just like looking at particular architectural details. Some people really love doors or windows or something like that. I think it could even be fun to start a sketchbook like that and not tie it to one particular trip, but you could have like your nature sketchbook where you have one bit that's this trip, one bit that's that trip, and you just build up all these beautiful nature sketches within that book. Or like a book of doors. I have a thing about doors, that's why I keep saying doors. But yeah, like different doors from, like these are my Italian doors, these are my Spanish doors, these are my Korean doors. Or another thing is looking at patterns, different patterns that are tied to the places you're traveling. I mean, with something like this, the type of sketch you use isn't particularly important, or the kind of materials, but yeah, it's something to think about. And lastly, I would say there's this whole other style of travel sketching where you're traveling and you're sketching, but the two things aren't necessarily tied. So you could be using a sketchbook to draw like fantasy scenes of a garden or doing something, anything. Yeah, this is more like just bringing a sketchbook along because you've got a lot of waiting time when you're traveling. You've got all that time at airports, waiting for trains, waiting for buses. So you just want to spend your time doing something you enjoy, which is sketching. Just the same as you might read a book or do a crossword or a Sudoku. I do Sudokus. And for this style of sketchbooking, you probably want to stick to something fairly lightweight, small little pouch of materials and a small sketchbook, because it's something that you need to pull out of your bag whenever you've got a few spare moments, and you can just yeah, sit there in the bus depot, or the bus depot sounds like such a depressing place, doesn't it? Sit there in the train station or in the airport and just, yeah, get some sketching done. And yeah, you don't need to actually be drawing on location. You don't need to be drawing from life just because you're traveling. You can do, yeah, just stick to your normal style, the things you love drawing. So I'd say those were the four main styles of travel sketching. So there's the scrapbooking, journaling, sort of almost going into Bujo style with sketching added in. Then there's the regular urban sketching, sketching on location style, the creating a specific interest sketchbook, or the sketching just as a separate thing from the travel style. So what kind of sketching style do you have when you're traveling? What do you enjoy most? Let me know in the comments. And as usual, if you like my video, give it a thumbs up. If you're not a subscriber, click the subscribe button so you see more of my content. And otherwise, I will be back real soon with another video. Thanks for watching.